see, the free marketeers always had a naive belief that free markets are always self-correcting and that markets left to themselves will always achieve the best results. They're the ideologues who believe that any regulation of private business is fundamentally wrong. They are the ideologues who have resisted the regulation of financial markets and the supervision of financial institutions. They believe that government is always the problem and never the solution. And your government has done more to undermine the ethos of public service by some of the members of your government who are so hostile to any notion of public service that I think occasionally that they forget that our teachers, our doctors, our nurses, the vast bulk of them are public servants. And yet, these ideologues, they've one little motto: public service bad, private sector good. Now, when there's a crash, the self-same ideologues argue that we should cover their losses with the people's taxes. The same people always demand lower and lower taxes for themselves, and many pay none at all. There is an alternative viewpoint, and it's time that it was heard. A viewpoint that recognises the importance of markets, but also recognises the limitations of markets. It recognises the role of public good and market regulation. It values transparency, honesty, competition and innovation, but does not encourage speculation or reward for merely short-term success. It is a political culture that values profit and productivity achieved through hard work, but does not endorse the ethic of the quick buck, the fast buck, or the scheme that nobody else knew about because it was in the small print of the tax code as a way of avoiding your taxes. I believe in incentives and rewards. I also believe that trust and traditional ethical standards are essential elements in the financial system and in the business system. I believe in the profit motive, but I also believe in responsibility to the community where those profits are made. After a decade of so much squandered on the short term, we must encourage a much wider community debate on values and the role values play in economics and business. A debate about how we assess the long-term values of companies, their executives and their assets against their long-term performance, as opposed to short-term asset bubbles that we have experienced at such a high cost and are now wreaking so much devastation in the Irish economy. And this is very much a values debate. Greed and mega profits as against a culture that values hard work and that values thinking about and preparing for tomorrow. In many ways, today is the epitaph of the Celtic tiger. I regret the no childcare system on a universal basis. I regret the no preschool education. What to say about the Greens? Well, it's a bit like Norman Tebbit and On Your Bike. There's to be 1,000, and we welcome it, to buy a bike once every 5 years. That's wow. Every 5 years you can write off 1,000 if you buy a bike. No. The sentiment is well meant, but the meat in the green sandwich ought to have been the public transport, particularly the interconnector and the metro to the airport. They are effectively sidelined, long-lined, whatever you want to call it, in this budget. They're sidelined and they're out there to grass. And all I would say as well, in relation to carbon, I mean, we were promised a carbon levy for consideration in the Commission on Taxation. Now, carbon taxes, as we know, are about changing behaviour as much as about raising income. And in fact, it's been promised over and over again that carbon levies would be revenue neutral. So what instead do we have today? We have an increase in petrol from tonight of 8 cents. Can leave their car and get to work on a train. So if you want to save the planet, you first have to provide a mechanism for people to change their behaviour, and you do that by investing in public transport. If anything else in this budget today, it reinstates again the primacy of roads. And by the way, in the budget, the indications are that we're going to pay up to 700 to 900 million over the next 5 years in relation to Kyoto commitments. And, I would have welcomed and really welcomed more initiatives in the budget in relation to saving, our greenhouse emissions, reducing our greenhouse emissions, and making our contribution to reducing global warming. I suppose at the end of the day, this budget in many ways is about Fianna Fáil hubris. Like Icarus, they flew too close to the sun, they claimed they could do everything, and now unfortunately we're the people they've crash landed on top of.